How many of you still have your Christmas tree up? And we took ours down yesterday. I promise you it's because the Ravens are not going to make it to the playoffs, because typically what happens, really no reaction. See, I can't hear. This is where folks on Zoom need to have their be unmuted so I can hear their snarky responses. But usually we switch over from Christmas ornaments to Ravens ornaments if it looks like they're going to go very far, but it doesn't, so we didn't, and it's down. It's actually been since Thanksgiving, so you'd think that we'd be ready. But I don't know if you've noticed, as soon as we round that corner, like the week before Christmas Eve, all of a sudden, boom, 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 it happened really fast. And then here we are a week after New Year's, and I don't know where the time went. But if we think that it's fast for us, can you imagine what it's like for Jesus, who has just turned 30 years old and is about to get on with his baptism? Is where John is handing over that sort of prophetic and messianic baton as he dunks Jesus in the Jordan River 2 weeks after he's born. It's a little head twisting, I think, noodle twisting. But we, as a church who typically follows the liturgical calendar, kind of are used to this kind of speeding around the corner this time of year. This is the time of year that we call, ready for it, ordinary time. Other times you'll see people, they'll label it as Jesus begins his ministry, and then we take a break for Lent, and then we pick up Jesus continues his ministry after Easter. It's really weird if you ask me, but I guess we have to have some sort of order. Holidays like Christmas and Easter, and then the lesser holidays, if you will, or prep time, Advent and Lent, and then that pop-up celebration of Pentecost somewhere around the end of spring. They seem to herald something we should be looking forward to, right? Whether it's the excitement of Christmas or the internalized sort of introspection of Lent, there always seems to be something else that's coming. But then we have this ordinary time that's plopped in the middle. And oftentimes, we fail to see its significance. In fact, we are already preparing liturgically, especially as ministers in the church, for Lent. But what of ordinary time? Now, ordinary time, you've heard all the readings. You will have heard all the readings. When you hear them again, they'll be familiar. But we are heading towards the next season, Lent, and then Easter, and then Pentecost. Often the life, and therefore the purpose and message of Jesus, the rest of the story, the rest of the year is often just considered ordinary. Nothing big seems to be happening. And like I said, everything that is happening seems to be in preparation for these bookends. Our expectation of bigness happening in the church comes with the anticipation of holidays or the seasons that precede them. The ordinary time just seems to be that mundane, everyday, boring, existing solely for what might come next. But my question to you is, what if the most important stuff actually happens during ordinary time? What if these so-called liturgical bookends at Easter are more reminders of what is coming versus end stories in and of themselves? What are we left with if all we have is ordinary time? If we took these holidays away and stopped celebrating them as the end all, then what do we have left? The time of Jesus' life and the relational impact, not the miraculous impact. What do we do, or what do we have if we take that away? What if this is the time where great things can happen? Now, we know that when we look back at the dinginess and dimness of this stable, and when we look at the deep grief and the darkness of the tomb, we know that miraculous, amazing, inexplicable, and highly debatable things happen in those spaces. So we know that when there is a downtime, special things happen that leave us speechless and hopefully transformed. So what about ordinary time? Is this the time where the waters seem to be calm, but are about to be shaken up? I find it interesting that if you saw the bulletin, for those of you who can't see, I'll hold it up, and I don't expect that you can see it, but at least I made the attempt to share. I get points for that. When you look at the dove of Christmas, it is a peace dove. You take peace away and you just add water, and now you have the baptismal dove. It's a very interesting symbol, and yet it transforms us and brings us from one season into the next. This is where Jesus begins his ministry. But it begins with relationship. It begins with his ordinariness of being baptized by John, his ordinariness of having friends and followers, his insistence that all those on the margins be included in the circle, especially the most judged, the lepers and the prostitutes, and those most hated, those tax collectors who colluded with the empire to drive their own people further into debt and misery. Jesus says, you are welcome here. And all throughout his ministry, he pushed his disciples into relationship with one another and with those around them, pointing to the incarnational reality that God dwells within all creation. And even as he left this world, those he left, including us, continue to wrestle with how to handle ordinary time when we're not distracted by all of the celebrations that come with the holidays. How do we deal with the mundane, that liminal space when it seems as if there's nothing of major import happening? I came in this morning and some of the Christmas decorations were still up. Some of them still are up. And that's only because I couldn't hide them behind the screen. We move so quickly into the next phase. It's what comes next? And what do we do to prepare for it? And what if it's nothing? What if the answer to that question is nothing? I want to give you a couple of examples of what that ordinary time could possibly look like in real life. In our nurturing justice classes that Reverend Chris Watson and I lead for racial justice around the country, we have been fortunate to work with numerous groups. Most of the time, whether we're working with them, whether we're working with them over a 2-day workshop or over a 6-month intensive, she and I, because we have similar personalities, this is a setup for you all, have process-oriented and goal-oriented expectations. I see you do. We expect things to happen, of course, depending on who we ever met with. Was it for a period over 6 months? This is a group that was made up of about 20 equal members of clergy of this conference, so stop trying to figure out who it might be. You will not figure it out. And early on, there was a conflict between a woman in the group, a woman of European descent, also clergy, with my colleague Chris, who is of African descent, and then the tension within the group. No matter how we tried to explain it, this woman could only see herself in the narrative. So everything was about her, white tears, protecting herself, trying to defend the fact that she is not racist and that she is not privileged and that she has a handle on her white skin supremacy and on her decentering herself and her privilege. And of course, the more she argued, the more she defeated the argument. But in all fairness to her, she was probably speaking for not just herself, but others in the group. But it created a tension, which allowed the group then to have other moments of tension, never really getting past that unresolved piece. We dreaded week to week meeting with this group, a feeling that is foreign to us. We spent so much time, Chris and I, having intense intimate conversations on how to handle this appropriately. We had lots of ways on how to handle it inappropriately, but we claim to be professionals. So we had these conversations and then we would go in and we could not move too much because there was always eggshells on the screen. The group ended just about a year ago and we were so relieved. We did our processing, our debriefing. We met with Reverend Dr. Love in order to decompress, and we have since moved on. And Chris last week emailed this particular one. And the email says, I am so sorry. I finally get it. My entire participation in that group was about centering myself in the midst of the conversation, sabotaging what could have been something profound. And I missed everything you said. And I don't know what's happened, but I'm finally understanding how I got in the way. And I'm realizing that I am not finished, nor will I be finished, as this is a lifetime. Thank you for putting up with me, for sticking with my apologies. During the ordinary time of the end of our time together and this period now, something happened. There was no class, there was no intense relationship, there was no pushback. She was in her own space, doing her own thing. And something happened that allowed something more profound than we could ever or even demand in our group. Ordinary time. The other speaks to me on a personal level, in that I think it's something to which we can all relate. I have always had in my back pocket a previous career being a psychotherapist, and I continue to see a person or two here or there, and there's this one family that I've seen for many, many years on and off. And the couple often comes to me for tune-ups. This couple have been married for well over 35 years. It's his third marriage, it's her second. He brings with him an intense history of major depression for which he has tried numerous remedies and therapies. She brings with her a history of major addiction and has been actively involved in sober for over 25 years. And they are very much connected with one another in whatever dance they have as a couple. And now they are recently retired. Not quite sure what to do with one another, but they're learning as they go. He comes to the space with a very flat affect. And that's not unusual. She comes with a level of anxiety, wanting him to feel better. They are fully aware of their codependent issues. They are fully aware, they are every therapist's dream. Let me just say that. They are fully aware of themselves in this space. But in the conversation, while he is exploring this other therapy that may or may not help, she was able to share that now they are retired. She wants nothing more than to have these in-depth, intimate relationship and conversation with him, so that she can know him to the depths of his being. It's what she's wanted, and she just loves him so much that this is what she is craving. He's flat affect and depressed, and his mechanism is to shut down. And he knows that that's what she wants, and he tries to go there, but he doesn't always perceive what she wants as being invitational. It's often critical, but you see how that could go. I don't need to get into all of those details. And in the midst of the conversation, she says, I'm afraid one of us is going to die before I get to know you. We have reached the top percentage of our lifetime. And I want the time we have left together to know you fully, and I'm afraid I'll lose you before that. He, on the other hand, is like, I get that. I don't know how to give that to you. I don't know what therapies I need to do to get there. I want to be there. I don't know how to get there. I don't know what to do. She wanted to prep, to talk and to move, and he wanted to struggle to try to get there so that he could meet her where she was. And they had this end goal of finally both being happy by both definitions, and they were just struggling with this. I looked at them and I said, let me ask you a question. Do you hold hands? Sometimes. Hold hands. Right now. This is Zoom, by the way. Hold hands. And they took each other's hands and they both started bawling. Because what she had said was, the mundane is not enough for me. I need more. And what we came to do is then make the mundane sacred. Instead of seeking a goal that you cannot both reach, take what you do have together and create it to be sacred. Take the ordinariness of your relationship and make it sacred. Everything that you do, make it sacred. When you hold hands, be aware of the texture of the other person's hands. Are they cold? Do your nails need to be cut? Are they chafed and chapped? Are they warm and comforting? Are they holding you tight or not? Don't talk. Look at each other in the eyes in that ordinary moment. Just stare at each other. And what do you see? And how can that be any less intimate than the most in-depth conversation you can have? Take what is ordinary and see it as sacred. We forget to do that. We forget that we are not destined for just the next big thing or the next big event, but in the everyday, we are called to be ordinary human beings. The incarnation of Jesus was an ordinary event. A baby born into this world, a person baptized to minister to and be in relationship with. These are ordinary things. And they are so simple and so sacred that we forget that therein lies our call. Everything else is secondary to our ability to look into the eyes and to hold the hand and to bump the elbow of the person next to us and see the miracle of incarnation that sits and stands right before us in whatever relationship we have with that person. Ordinary time is pretty darn profound. It is in that profundity, in that ordinariness, that the most sacred of transformations and experiences can occur. And so, my friends, move rapidly through the season of Christmas and Epiphany and around the corner to Lent. I would invite you to embrace and welcome ordinary time. And just be so happy that we are just basically ordinary people. And the people said, amen.